I think at this point, and this is actually something my old boss told me when I met with him to just tell him, I'm going to move on, I'm going to do something else. He was like, okay, well, just trust your gut. And that's been the best advice I've ever been given. And I think, especially as a woman, we have this innate intuition. And I think it's just important to look into that and listen to that through these journeys. And especially, going back to the previous question, my gut, excuse me, was screaming at me like I needed to make a difference. I needed to change things up. And once I did, things have just really worked out. And it can be scary, and you can like, is it anxiety? Is it am I overthinking things? But sometimes, just really honing in and listening to that gut feeling can make a huge difference.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Genevieve Dolan. And just a quick introduction to Genevieve. So grew up in the small town of Chicago. And then went to high school and started to develop a lot of skincare issues or, acne and whatnot. And so I always wanted to find a better way to be able to deal with a lot of that. So started taking care of her skin, learned a lot about those issues, went to college, graduated, moved back to Chicago, went into financing for a period of time, also worked in the automotive industry for a bit, then went into event planning, and during this time was still unhappy with the status of her skin and whatnot. So continue to figure out ways to treat it without having to use a lot of drugs. Went cold turkey off of everything, not taking anything at all, and then heard about CBD, tried it for sleep and body aches, and also started doing that with some of the skincare stuff. Got furloughed with COVID, took the opportunity to invest in the business as well as build that out, and is also doing crowdfunding. So or working in a crowded market, not crowdfunding, but working in a crowded market. But with
Yes.
that much is hopefully a correct introduction. Welcome on the podcast, Genevieve.
Thank you so much, Devin. Really excited to be here and share my story.
Absolutely, and
Thanks
excited
for
to
the
have you on.
intro.
So, other than I said that you were doing crowdfunding instead of working in a crowded market, but hopefully, other than
Yeah.
that, I got most of the intro right. But I packed a much longer journey into a much more condensed version.
Yeah.
But let's go back in time and unpack that a bit. So, kind of tell us how your journey got started. Growing up in Chicago and having to deal with some of
Totally.
the sensitive skin issues.
Yeah, so thank you. You did a great job summing it up. As you said, I am from a small town outside of Chicago. I'm grew up with a bunch of siblings. I'm one of five. I have two sisters, and the three of us, plus my mom, have always been into beauty, wellness, all that good stuff from a young age. And as you mentioned again, in high school, I just started to develop a bunch of acne, really super sensitive skin, and it was really uncomfortable. So I started going to the dermatologist a lot, and they prescribed a lot of meds, so both orally and topical. And while those worked, it wasn't ever figuring out the root of the issue. And then through college, I went on heavier meds. I don't know if you've heard of Accutane, when you have to take other meds while you're on that. And it was just, it just felt a little bit uncomfortable for me. I think pharmaceuticals are great, but too many can be a lot. And so coming out of school, I was on some other meds as well. And I didn't want to be on anything. I kind of wanted to figure some things out naturally. And so as you said, I cut everything out, really worked on my fitness, my wellness, my mental health. And as I went through some of my work, different jobs, I did,
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna
oh
say.
yeah,
So let's dive into. So you went to, or
oh yeah,
rewinding just a little bit.
yeah, of
So you went
course.
to college, and what'd you get your degree in when you were going to school?
Okay, so I studied communications, got a degree in that, and then on the side I was also studying business and psychology. But I didn't get minors, but they were all those are very interesting to me. And it was actually really interesting during my communication minor. I had to do a full semester on a community, and I ended up choosing the kind of the marijuana, weed, cannabis industry. So it's kind of funny looking back and seeing
Mm.
that I was studying some things in cannabis, and here I am with a product line that does include hemp, which is part of the cannabis family.
So now, and that makes perfect sense. So now, so you went to college, you got the degrees as well as some
Yes.
of the minors, and then you came out, and I think, or before you got into what you're doing today, you went into finance for a period of time. Is that where you started out?
Yeah, so I got home from school and I worked at my dad's company. He's in the fixed income world, and so I was doing that for almost a year. It was really interesting, great, learned a lot of discipline. My dad doesn't back down. It's strict over there. So I learned a lot quickly, and that was really interesting. But I definitely have a really creative side, and I was looking for a little bit more, just maybe not in finance. I also didn't study it, so it was just different. But
Mm.
from there, I went to a startup in the automotive space, which was really interesting to be in that type of environment. I mean, it's the complete opposite that I was in the finance world. So it was, I learned a lot. I did sales there, and again, kind of pushed out. I was pushed out of my comfort zone, which was a good learning. But
Mm.
ultimately, it wasn't, the company didn't really work out as well as we were hoping. So I moved on, and got into event planning, and that really, I was there for almost 4 years, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I loved working with people. I loved designing the events. I loved managing. But it's stress. I mean, like most jobs anyways now, especially event planning, it's a little bit, the hours are tough. You work all weekend. Um, and while it was fine for a while, eventually just some of the things kind of took a toll on my body, physically, mentally, and I just started to learn a lot about CBD because I was starting to go to a nutritionist and a chiropractor. And when I learned about the new, I guess, extract, CBD versus THC, I was really excited because I was taking a break from THC for a while because of the psychoactive effects, and then I started taking the CBD, and it really helped. And and then I just became obsessed. I was doing research, reading everything I could. And there's just so many things that one CBD can do for people, but also the hemp, the hemp plant in general. So I got
Mm.
excited about that.
No, makes perfect sense. So now, so you were still in event planning, I think, when you started at least looking into this and started using it. And then if I remember when we talked a little bit before, COVID came around, and like a lot of people, you get furloughed. People don't know where the business is going to go, what's going to happen. And so you have to take a pause, or otherwise, take a break. And so,
Yeah.
so then was it during that furlough time, you said, hey, this is a great opportunity, I'm going to go all in full time on that, or did
Yeah.
that come later, or kind of how did you kind of transition from doing this for kind of out of necessity for your own health needs to
Mm-hmm.
looking to make it into a business?
Yeah, so I think in November of 2019, I had a birthday party and I invited all these people to talk about CBD. I had CBD experts, and then by February, things were getting dicey in just with COVID and stuff. And by then, I had started expressing my passion for hemp and for CBD with my family, and just, I had been in the event industry for 4-ish years, and I had learned so much, but I was just ready for my next career step.
Mm.
And I was just in conversation. My family has an investment firm, and I was just thinking, how do we get into this industry? Where do we go? Where do we start? And an opportunity came about, and then I was furloughed in March, and we just started, the conversation just continued. So the conversation started towards the, beginning of COVID, and then March through the summer, lots of conversations, and eventually These Leaves was born.
So now you got into it, you started, and what
Yeah,
was the original idea? Hey, it's gonna just sell CBD oil for
right.
general, or did you get into skincare? Kind of how did you figure out what you were going to
Yeah.
do, or kind of what that was going to look like?
Yeah, of course. So originally, there's so much, the wellness market for CBD really blew up then. And while, of course, I wanted to get into that, I was going through and just looking at all these different companies and researching and thinking about what I needed, and looked at all the benefits of CBD. And I read about the antioxidant benefits and how great it is on, for your skin, both on your body and your face. And so for someone who, again, struggled with acne and constantly, discouraged about my skin, and even during that time was still having issues, I was like, why don't we look into skincare? And some people I was working with, they also thought that would be a great idea, just to pivot away from the very competitive wellness space. So that's where we started. And we started with two products, which we still have, a serum and a moisturizer. So right now they're great, super simple, but we can go into that after.
Awesome. No, and I think that makes sense, because I said crowd or sourcing, but what I meant to say is the crowded field. It
Yes,
does seem like, CBD oil has a lot of uses, but it also has a lot of competition. So it sounds like, it took
yes,
some time to say, hey, what are some of the uses that maybe aren't being focused on, or otherwise more overlooked? And that sounds like, kind of the skincare and the medicinal, or some of those uses associated with that tend
right.
to be a great area to focus. And so now,
Definitely.
so help us understand. So when did you kind of officially make the leap, as you're getting furloughed and whatnot, to doing this full time, and kind of how's it gone since then?
So we officially, signed the Vives Leaves contract, I believe, end of August, beginning of September in 2020. So I had discussions with my old boss, mentioned, I was going to move on. And then we signed and we started, and we created the brand, got the website going, got the, words, products were in production. I mean, we had been starting to test products for like 3 months prior to then. And then by January 2021, our products were made. And they well, actually, you know what, it was February. I forget, things take so much longer than you think, even though it feels like it's been forever. So yeah, and then by February and March we were able to launch. So last about a year and a half ago we launched.
So now you launched about a year and a half ago, and how's it gone? And no right or wrong answer, in the sense,
Mhm.
sometimes you launch and it takes off like a rocket ship and it's just a charge to success. Other times it's figuring out how to do
Yeah,
it. Sometimes you think it's a good idea, but it's too early, or the market doesn't accept it. So kind of give us an
right.
idea, kind of how's it gone, and kind of where you guys are at today.
Yeah, I think compared to last year at this time, we're in a really great, much better place. But to be very honest, the beauty world is incredibly saturated. To get into any of the big stores, it takes time and connections, and celebrities have it really easy right now. But as you know, an entrepreneur, I've definitely worked hard. I had a lot of obstacles last year. I learned a lot. I've never started a business. I never, these are all first times for me. And so it's been quite the journey, but I definitely, it's going well. And we've gotten a ton of traction this year. So last year was definitely kind of the growing learning curve. And this year we've definitely hit a mark and getting a lot of traction. But we're still climbing the hill, but we have high hopes. We've been, in a ton of publications, including Birdie and Oprah Daily, and even some of the news stations around Chicago. So we're making a hit. We just, we got to get out there more.
Well, that's probably the story of every business, right?
Yeah,
You always
right.
try to figure out how to get out there, how to get in front of the right people, and how to get noticed or known. And so it sounds like still plenty of work to do, but you're
Yes.
finding your way, and are making some great success. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
well, awesome. Well, now as we've kind of reached the present day of your journey, it's always a great
Yeah.
time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. I will tease out to the audience that
Oh, yeah.
Genevieve is doing the giveaway. So before you tune out, make sure to first hear the two questions, but then also get the code for if you want to get a free entrepreneur water bottle that you'll hear in just a minute.
Oh,
But
yeah.
before we get to the giveaway, I'll jump to the two questions I always ask at the end. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
Okay, so still early, learning a lot all the time.
Yeah.
I think, as I mentioned in the beginning of my figuring out that, hemp is my passion. I love CBD. I want to help people with this. My family was really, really encouraging, really supportive. And but we didn't really know much about the industry. So we did, look for resources who could help guide us and all those things. And we definitely jumped pretty quickly at an opportunity that came about. And we had some really high expectations, especially for operations and distribution. And, it just turned out things just weren't aligning. They didn't quite go the way we thought. And I think from that experience, I really have learned just how important it is to work with people, companies, resources, vendors, whoever it is, but just make sure, everyone is aligned with the brand goals, with the brand vision, with the brand mission, and of course, the brand values. And so from there, it's just vetting, it's just learning and really doing my due diligence. And I learned it the hard way, but you know what? I'm happy for it. And we really got to a great place, even though we went through some of those things.
Yeah, and I think that that's one where as much you can read about it and hear about it, and
Yeah.
it's one of those where you just have to gain some of the experience. And sometimes you're not a good boss, you're not a good manager, and people don't know you don't communicate that well. And other times everybody thinks that they are good at hiring right out of the chute, and I can
Yeah,
read people and I know them, and I'll be the exception. And then you get into it
absolutely.
and you find just like everybody else, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. So definitely easy mistake to make, but definitely a good one to learn from.
Totally.
Second question I always ask is now, if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Yeah, I think at this point, and this is actually something my old boss told me when I met with him to just tell him, I'm going to move on, I'm going to do something else. He was like, okay, well, just trust your gut. And that's been the best advice I've ever been given. And I think, especially as a woman, we have this innate intuition. And I think it's just important to look into that and listen to that through these journeys. And especially, I mean, going back to the previous question, I mean, my gut, excuse me, was screaming at me like I needed to make a difference. I needed to change things up. And once I did, things have just really worked out. And it can be scary, and you can like, is it anxiety? Is it am I overthinking things? But sometimes, just really honing in and listening to that gut feeling can make a huge difference.
No, makes perfect sense, and that I think that's a great thing. And I think you do have to be careful, because if all you ever do is listen to your gut, that could get
Well,
you into
right.
trouble, because
Yes.
not your gut isn't always right. But I think there is a lot of intuition that comes into it, and sometimes you don't can't put your finger on it, doesn't quite know why exactly, but it just
Right.
makes sense to you and feels right. And a lot of times you do just have to go with that, even if you can't always articulate it, because there is kind of those underlying feelings that
Yes.
oftentimes are right. So I think that's a great piece of
Yeah,
advice.
you have to kind of decipher and do the work to figure it out. But I don't know, it's always worth, testing it a little bit.
Absolutely. So awesome. Well, now as we are, before we wrap up the episode and let
Yeah.
people know how to reach out to you, you are doing sponsoring the entrepreneurial water bottle giveaway, which is awesome. We love giving back to the our entrepreneurial community. So
Yeah.
for those people that want to take advantage of it, we'll provide a bit of the information and some of the posts. And as you're seeing this episode go live, but they do have to listen to the episode and come up to this point. And
Okay.
what's a promo code that they can use to utilize that giveaway?
Yeah, so please use Vives 15, and you can spell that V as in Victor, IEV as in Victor, ES, and then 1 5.
All right. So Vives 15. I'm not going to put the promo code in the show notes, but I will put the link. And so you can definitely reach out, listen to the
Yeah, please
episode,
do.
and definitely you love giving away those water bottles. Are a fun way you can show off being a great entrepreneur. Well,
Definitely.
with that, now as we are wrapping up, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or
Okay.
all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, the best way I'd say is go to our website. There's a place to fill in, and the emails will come into me. So I will, respond back, of course, if you fill in your name and contact information. And then also feel free to send us a message on Instagram at Vives Leaves. always looking at that, and we love to connect. We love to learn more about our community and see how we can help people or learn from other people as well. So please do give us a
Awesome.
shout.
Absolutely. And I definitely encourage everybody to reach out if you're looking for some great health and health and beauty products, especially if you have or with the skin and sensitivity. Make sure to check them out and all their other products and support a great business. And if nothing else, make a new best friend. So, well,
Absolutely.
with that, thank you again, Genevieve, for coming on the podcast. It's been a fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review because it makes or helps us to share all these awesome journeys with even more entrepreneurs and startups and small businesses. And with that, if you ever need help with your startup or small business with patents, trademarks, or anything else, just reach out to us and go to strategymeeting.com. Grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Genevieve, and wish the
Thank
next leg
you.
of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks.